We're Muscle Minds, right?
First edition.
Right.
First edition. So I guess we'll have to figure out how exactly close to hold it because
Probably right around here is fine.
around
I mean, it picks up pretty well.
like a distinguished gentleman.
Right. Yeah, it's very distinguished. Put your
yeah.
pinky up in the air, huh?
Mm.
Well, that'd be a blooper. Anyway. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first podcast of Muscle Minds. I am Pastor Brett. This is Dr. Matt. Fun fact, though, I'm not a pastor, and he's not a real doctor. We're actually just fitness trainers who just love the passion of fitness, and we are trying to educate the people of the other toxic bullshit they are probably fed within their minds and give them actual factual information.
Definitely, we'll have to censor that. But
right.
So yes, Pastor Brett, correct. No, yeah, I think so. Brett alluded to exactly what we want to do, which is give some knowledge out there to people, and so I think we have a good grasp on what's real, what's going to help, what's effective. You know, who you should follow, who you should probably not take their advice too seriously.
Right.
But then a lot of it's just gonna be like today we're busting some myths.
Yeah.
You know,
because you got to think within the fitness industry, there's a lot of myths that are like very potent in the fitness industry, and everybody just feeds onto it and grabs it like freaking piranha. It's like, come on.
No, it's crazy how something can permeate the culture for a long time, and people just buy it as 100% fact.
Yeah, with no like science-based evidence backing it up or anything like that.
Sure.
But that's what we're here for, right? That's what we're here to educate all the people, right? All you amazing people out there. So
today, one of the things we're going to talk about, we'll just go over a couple of them, but a couple as in 5 or 6 each. Some fitness questions. So when people go into Google, what they type in, what most people type in. So what, Brett, what would you say the number one question people type into Google is?
That's a very good question. I would say the most common thing that I hear, and especially what people Google, is a lot of like supplements. What's good, what should I take, what should I not take in terms of what's going to help me see results. I feel like that's like a big thing that people want to know. For example, like creatine, whey protein, or is all that stuff worth it?
Totally.
That's like a big thing. I feel like, because again, biggest question at the end of the day is like, is it worth taking supplements?
Right.
I personally think absolutely it is, but it just depends on what it is. I mean, there's a lot of companies out there that have all these like fat burners and other things like that, where I'm just like, it's a complete hoax. All it is just there to steal your money.
Sure.
But like, the essentials, right? You're going to need some extra protein. I'm not saying that you should have, whey protein be the main source of protein that you should have, but it's a good thing to have as extra stuff.
You said fat burners, right? So like that's a good example. Like I'll give you guys a specific example of why you should be careful with supplements. So L-carnitine. So you've seen L-carnitine. You got it out there. You got a liquid form. The packaging is slick, and it says it's going to burn fat for you. And then if you look into it, you might see online, if you Google it, that L-carnitine shuttles fat out of the body, meaning removes it from your body.
Right.
So some real smart marketing guy said, okay, well, if L-carnitine shuttles fat out of the body, more L-carnitine would shuttle more fat out of the body. Yeah. That was the premise for selling L-carnitine, right? So now that supplement is on the market. You can buy it most places, and the label says will burn fat, but it's not proven. There's no double-blind placebo-controlled study that says, if you take 1,500 milligrams of L-carnitine every workout, then you will burn this much extra fat. There's zero proof that it works.
Right. Exactly. And that's the thing. Like most of those things, is like it's all of it's just marketing, right? You put it in a slick package. You say, hey, this actually does this, and if you, like to his point, if you take more L-carnitine, then you're gonna burn way more versatile body fat, right? And that's just not what it's going to happen.
Now, this is the thing. There are some unsung heroes in the supplement world. So whereas L-carnitine is everywhere, most people have heard of it, and it basically, in my opinion, does not work, is not effective. You have yohimbine hydrochloride. So yohimbine was actually, there's a Brazilian soccer player study. They took a bunch of soccer players, specifically 50 of them, and they had 25 take 20 milligrams of yohimbine hydrochloride, and the other 25 did not take yohimbine hydrochloride. They took a sugar pill.
Mm,
Nobody knew who was taking what.
right.
So that only the people administering the study knew. And some of those researchers did not know. That's what's called double blind,
Hmm.
because all the researchers were unaware of who was getting what pill. So there's no researcher bias into it.
Right.
Placebo controlled referred to some got a sugar pill, some got the real thing. 20 milligrams yohimbine hydrochloride. They then went about their normal soccer regimen, strength training, lots of cardio,
Right.
obviously,
For
for
sure.
soccer team.
Yeah.
And Brazil is one of the best, so they're probably getting after it.
Exactly.
They saw 0.7% more body fat loss for the group taking yohimbine than the other group. So that might not seem significant, right? But it was 3 months. But say you take it for 6 months, you might see an extra 1.25% or more with that supplement. So
Exactly.
that's a good point on the supplements. Like the supplements, and Brett brought this up before the podcast. Who should take supplements,
Right.
right? And so somebody that is 50 pounds overweight, that eats fast food every day, that
Hmm.
doesn't do any cardio, that barely strength trains, should that dude focus on supplements?
I wouldn't say no. I would say the biggest thing is going to be actually getting into the gym,
Right.
focusing on the nutrition. Because at
Sure.
the end of the day, now here's to say this: like, can supplements work for everybody? Sure, yeah, but like you got to know in terms of like where your focus should lie first,
Right.
right? For somebody who is overweight, let's say 40 pounds, maybe 50 pounds overweight, and they're trying to lose that. The biggest thing they need to do is focus more on the steady state cardio. Focus more on actually going into the gym, lifting weights. Focusing on cutting back maybe on the carbs and maybe add some more protein in there,
Sure.
and you can also add maybe some whey protein in there, but
Sure. Sure.
but
Sure.
other than that, I mean, should they really focus on like the fat burners and
Right.
other things like that? And I would say no.
Right.
They need to focus more on actually doing the necessary things, because again, at the end of the day, this is a lifestyle, right?
Sure.
You need to build this up and make it a habit.
Right.
You need to go in, do the things that you're supposed to do,
Sure.
and then eventually, when you get to that point, you're like, okay, I'm down 20 pounds, 30 pounds, whatever, then you might want to say, like, okay, maybe now I can, try to look more
Exactly.
into the other types of supplements that
The
can help me
the
get to where I need to
person
be.
that's been grinding and grinding and grinding, they got their nutrition on point.
Right.
They've seen progress.
Hmm.
maybe they're 5 years in. That person that has hit a quote unquote plateau,
Exactly.
maybe now it might be time to look into some supplements.
Right.
But you don't want to go, from nothing to SARMs or Tren.
Yeah.
You,
It's
you
like,
want to you want to really make sure you know what you're doing in terms of,
unless you really just don't care about life, and you're just like, you're
well,
wanting to
yeah.
just like see the results,
Hey man, some people want to be a Ferrari, and some people are okay with being a Honda Civic,
right.
and it is what it is,
It just is what it is.
but yeah, I mean, and that's a whole nother topic, the whole steroids thing. I mean, that just to briefly, I guess we're talking about supplements.
Right.
So, for up to 25, especially for males, you should really not be taking anything exogenous, no exogenous
Hmm.
anabolics at all, because that your hormone system is still developing, your
For
endocrine
sure.
system, and that can really mess you up for the future. If you want to have kids, your fertility can be at risk. If you take one cycle, you can interrupt your gonads and your system, and that's not a good thing to happen. You never
Right.
know what can change. Now, there was a great study, the Sochi Olympics. They took the Olympics athletes in the village and they interviewed them one by one, and they said, if you could win a gold medal tomorrow, but you would die 20 years earlier,
I remember
would
reading on the
would
study.
you take that gold medal tomorrow knowing you would die 20 years earlier? Every single person said yes.
Yeah,
Every
I mean,
single
at the end
person.
of the day, they're achievers and they want to achieve like the highest,
Yeah,
achievement in
it's
sports, right?
totally, it gives you a good insight into the psychology of an
Exactly.
athlete, somebody who really wants something. They would give 20 years of their life to get that thing.
Right. Absolutely.
So young men are going to look at anabolic steroids and they want the body, and they're like, I think that might help me get there.
Hmm.
But that's why getting a trainer, what's his name, Max, your guy Max,
Max. Yeah.
getting that kid was so smart. He's got in on the baseline. He's like, what, 22? How old is he?
Around 24,
Okay.
25 ish, right
So
in there.
young
Yeah.
kid, he's right at sort of what his peak can be, learning the base movements, learning how to do them properly, learning about nutrition.
Right.
And then maybe, when he gets to, a little older, he can experiment with this or that, getting blood work from his doctor, making sure he's smart about it.
Hmm.
If he goes that route. But yeah, that's the right way to do. So and he's a good example, right? We were talking about whey protein.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the things that's a myth is in here, or rather a most Googled question, right? Is like, how much protein do I need?
Mm.
So like depends who writes that question, right? If it's a
Yeah.
grandma, how much protein does she need? Versus if it's Max, your young guy who's trying to put on size, how much protein does he need, right?
That's also going to depend in terms of like, what your goals are, things like that. So for Max, if he's trying to put on more size, I normally would go either 1 gram per pound of body weight, maybe even above that if he's trying to put on size, so that way
Sure.
we can keep on more lean muscle tissue going through that process. But yeah, but somebody who, like, let's say my one of my woman clients, if she's wanting to do more, like, oh, I kind of want to tone up and things like that, I might not have her do maybe 1 gram of protein per day, maybe a
Yeah.
little bit less than that,
Yeah.
right? Fun fact for those women out there, they did a study to where women who are trying to burn more fat, the more protein that you consume, all right, the higher the percentage in terms of body fat that you're going to lose,
Sure.
right? I think it was around 0.8 grams per pound of body weight was like a where women saw the most benefit in terms
Sure.
of losing body fat
Hmm.
percentage. But again, it all really just depends in terms of what your goals are, who you are, really, too, in terms of like
Sure.
gender.
Sure. And that's a
But yeah.
fascinating thing about protein is that protein, when you consume, say, let's say 500 calories of some steak.
Mhm.
Well, some of those calories that you're consuming are actually being used by your body to digest the steak. So you're not absorbing, you're getting the benefit of all the micronutrients and you're absorbing all the protein. But
Exactly.
at the end of the day, the net amount of calories, if out of that 500, might be 490, 480. So that's one of the reasons why, if you see carnivore folks that are super shredded and lean, it's one of the reasons for that is that they are, a lot of the calories they're consuming are going towards digesting their food they're eating. So
Yeah.
they're getting this back end benefit of being in a calorie deficit because of the foods they're eating, right?
Exactly.
Another awesome thing about protein is that it will stabilize your blood sugar.
Mhm.
So whereas fat at the most digests in an hour and a half, at the absolute most, carbohydrates are anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour, maybe hour 20, but protein digests 3 to 4 hours in your
Right.
body. So if you're eating protein, that's why they all think every 3 to 4 hours, right? Every two to
Yeah.
three hours, because they want to
Maintain muscle
keep,
protein
right,
synthesis and
maintain
everything like
muscle
that.
protein synthesis, and you can stay with a good blood sugar level, so you're not craving the Snickers at the end of the day.
Right.
How many
Exactly.
clients do you have, Brett, where they do great all day? They do
Yeah.
they
They're
do
crushing it.
eggs and oatmeal for breakfast. They
Yeah.
do the Greek yogurt and the nuts for a snack.
For
They
sure.
they do the chicken breast and the salad for lunch. And then they do the protein shake for a little afternoon. And then they get home from work and they're like, "Where are the Oreos?
Right.
I need
Let me
them
tell you something,
right
man. In
now."
terms of my clients, I listen. That is, I think every trainer out there would
It's
acknowledge the same
everybody.
thing.
Yeah.
There are going to be clients that, like, when they get home and they're like, oh my gosh, I need like some sort of, like, sweetness, and
Sure.
their body's craving
Yeah.
a little bit of glucose, right? So,
Totally.
and listen, I feel like, I don't know about you, I've been there,
Yeah, of
so,
course.
and who doesn't like a good little, Oreo every once in a while, right?
100%. 100%.
But
That's
here,
why we think about the 80/20, though, right?
exactly,
So,
right. But here's the thing, like, in terms of like, could you all have Oreos and still lose weight, right? Absolutely, you could. Now, in terms of how to go about that is going to be, making sure that you're not exceeding your caloric intake for the day. More so, I kind of look more at, I don't know how you do this. I more so look out through the entire week
yeah,
compared to like just the day itself.
sure.
Because I mean, one day you go over, it's fine, but like in the span of a week, in terms
Totally.
of how many calories you took in versus how many calories you burned out, is
Yeah.
going to make a big difference in terms of if you gain weight or if you lose weight.
Right, right. That was
So
one of the questions was, do I have to give up sugar?
no,
That was one of the Googled questions.
absolutely not. Now, in terms of like certain issues, because good amount of sugar intake has been shown to lead to early signs of arthritis,
Oh, sure.
other types
Diabetes
of
type 2.
diabetes. Yeah, so Be weary about that.
Yeah, and the
What?
reality is that a lot of the folks that are overweight
Mhm.
have insulin resistance,
Yeah,
and that is one of the first steps to type 2 diabetes.
exactly.
I mean, when you have a what's essentially a mismanagement of carbohydrates. So you take in carbohydrates
Right.
and you're not outputting enough activity, enough energy to offset that balance, right?
Right.
I like this analogy of your body is the bank, the fitness bank,
Yeah.
right? And the energy bank. And so if you think about a bank, if you keep withdrawing cash from your bank, but you're not putting any money in,
Mhm.
then that's a problem. Well, at the bank, if you put a bunch of money in and never take it out, it's never a problem. But here, you got a lot of extra body fat. That
Right.
that body fat is this money you've been putting in the bank, and so we got to spend that, baby.
Yeah,
We got to
absolutely.
spend it.
We gotta get rid of that.
Yeah, we gotta balance out that ratio. So
Exactly.
we have a lot of activity stored up
Mhm.
on our body, and we gotta get it out in the form of using some effort and some energy.
And that's why when we talk about people who are plus 40, 50 pounds,
Right.
we want to make sure that we can keep those glucose levels lower, or intake lower. And so that way they're expending more of their energy through the
Glucose
body.
meaning carbohydrate. Keep
Right.
your carbohydrate intake lower
Mhm.
and higher protein, like we said
Exactly.
before. Manage those blood sugar levels.
Mhm.
Now you might run into what we said, where you do great throughout, and normally it's weird. Some people it's a day,
Yeah.
so they do great through the day, and then nighttime is like chips and candy and Oreos, whatever.
Yeah,
Some
sort of thing
people
like that.
it's
Yeah.
they make it the whole week, Monday through Friday, and the weekend it's pizza and beer and this and that, right? Some
Right.
people make it a month and then they just crash completely, and now for
Yeah.
2 weeks they're off the wagon eating whatever they want.
Mhm.
And so the psychology is interesting there. And so one of the things on here is, should I have a cheat day? That was a Google question. And so one of the things that's interesting, Brett and I discussed this, and this is a reality of the psychology of the brain,
Mhm.
is some folks are abstainers and some are moderators. You
Right.
have two different types of people when you're going towards some fitness goal.
Yeah.
The abstainers do best when they remove the junk food or the food that's not going to get them to their goal. They remove it out of sight, out of mind. So they don't keep junk in the house, and then they allow themselves a cheat day or a cheat meal or whatever. So they abstain, and then they allow themselves, and they make sure they get it too. They don't. I'm not going to do my. You do that because it resets you, and that's how the psychology of your brain works. There are moderators as well, and those folks don't have to have a cheat day.
Right.
They can adhere to the 80-20 rule. So Brett, I love explain to them what that is.
Yeah. So, well, the thing is like, the 80%, it pretty much is going to be what you eat within a given day. The other is going to be what you expend during your workouts.
Oh, 80-20, like you can have a little junk with that 20, most of it is 80.
Oh, okay. Then yeah, sorry. I'm thinking of the other 80-20.
Sure.
But yeah, so making sure that the 80% is going to be mixed more with, the foods that you're supposed to eat,
Sure.
right? So your protein, your carbs, your fats, but make sure that the healthy, right? So like for protein, like eggs, fish, chicken, lean meats, things like that. And then the other 20% is going to be, you can incorporate the things that you enjoy to eat.
Yeah, whatever you want.
Right, a little something, a little pasta, freaking pasta.
Little bread.
I don't know why we just went to freaking New York for 2 seconds, but
But no, that's and that for those moderator folks, that's what they have to do. They have to allow themselves to take a little piece, enjoy it, and they can move right on. They don't have to take a chip and then they eat the whole bag 5 minutes later, crying on the couch watching Friends.
Right.
That's what you don't, because if you break that, if you're an abstainer and you just have junk all around the house, you'll just eat it and you'll go crazy and you won't be able to control yourself. And if you're a moderator and you allow yourself a cheat day, you will go balls to the wall bananas, consume 7,000 calories, and now you put it
and
back
then you're
on.
just like, oh God. Not only that, you feel like crap when you have so much stuff like that. Now listen, like we said, is sugar bad?
Right.
No. Sugar is not bad when done correctly.
If you're starving in the African desert and somebody gave you a Snickers bar, you would be like, "Oh my, thank you so much."
Thank Jesus.
So
right?
sugar is not bad. It's a scenario. It's a perspective. To a marathon runner, sugar's great.
Yeah.
To somebody who's already 400 pounds and they're on that show with the mean Indian guy, Dr. No. Have you ever seen that? My 600-pound life.
Yeah.
And he's like so mean, and it's but if you're there, sugar's probably not the best thing for you.
Right.
So
Exactly.
it's all about perspective and your situation.
Right. And like I said, sugar should not be the enemy. I think especially in the fitness industry today, is I feel like a lot of people give this negative rap to it. But like I said, we need to have glucose within the bloodstream to be able to help, get our energy, going into workouts
Sure.
and things like that. Now, obviously, we talk about fructose. Obviously, one of the sugar molecules in fruit. That actually is something that I would recommend for somebody, let's say, who is a little bit more on the overweight side compared to somebody who's maybe like skinnier.
Sure.
Maybe like, hey, you can have like maybe like some Oreos, to put on some weight.
Yeah.
Things like that. So
one of the things is that's one of our myths, and we'll go into that. So the anabolic window after working out. So for some, and that's interesting too, because if you have somebody who is working out to lose weight versus working out to put on muscle,
right?
And like say Max, who's pretty lean, he has a very low body fat, and we need to get weight on that guy in terms of just mass in general. So would you recommend? So recently people have said protein, you got to get your protein. What about carbs?
Carbs are important.
Carbs are important,
especially after a workout.
Yes.
So like if you're doing like a heavy lifting day, let's say you're going,
going to failure,
doing heavy, let's say heavy leg day, right? You're hitting your squats, you're hitting your leg extensions, you're hitting your RDLs, doing your lunges, whatever the case is, man, you are taxed, like you're done.
You gave your carbohydrates.
Exactly. And when we talk about glucose, the form of glucose is going to go towards that energy expenditure, right? So you're expending that energy during that exercise, okay? So, that's when after the workout you want to replenish, right? So, but now we talk about the myth of the anabolic window, right? So, and here's the thing, all right? So
meaning you got to get your protein in
like
right after, like immediately, like have your
if
protein
not, you're
shake.
going to lose the gains,
You finish your curl and okay, I'm good.
Exactly, right? So that's a myth, guys. I don't want you to buy into that. It's totally fabricated, okay? Now, in terms of what has been shown with the scientific literature, is that we have a 4 to 5 hour window.
Sure.
Okay, so I was actually listening to a podcast with Jeff Nippard.
Yeah.
So very well educated guy.
Sure.
Pro bodybuilder, everything like that. He actually did a study with the scientific literature, and just basically explaining that when it comes to the 4 to 5 hour window, right? So you maybe beforehand, have that pre-workout meal, have that consist of carbohydrates or in some protein. If you're doing more whole foods, which honestly both Matt and I would recommend, so have some chicken, have some rice, or like have something that is considered whole foods, okay? But if let's say you're in a rush, you're like, I don't have that much time, what I would recommend at that point is having something that's lower in fat, lower in fiber, because that's what's gonna, not get into the bloodstream quicker. Fats actually, hold off, the digestive process.
Sure.
So you want to have something super quick and easy. So like, let's say you're like 30 minutes out, like I need to like get something in now before I go in.
Yeah.
Protein shake is a good thing to have with a banana.
I love the OJ. Stan Afterday gave me this like 5 years ago. But the OJ and Greek yogurt. So non-fat Greek yogurt with some full sugar OJ, like 8 to 10 ounces.
Right.
You shake that baby together. It's like an orange creamsicle.
Yeah.
It is delicious. You get potassium, crazy potassium amount from the yogurt and a lot from the OJ.
Right.
That helps with the muscle contraction. And then you get the sugar, so glucose, carbohydrates, fuel your workout. And then you get some protein in there as well, probably 15 to 18 grams for about 3/4 of a cup. So you add to your protein goal for the day.
Exactly.
And then you're getting the sugar, you get some potassium, it digests quickly, quick energy. Brett made a good point, the fiber and the fat slowing digestion. So after you lift, I'm sure you've seen people doing gummy bears or Rice Krispie treats.
For sure.
Also a lot of sugar, no fiber. So that after you lift, if you can have access to some protein and you can take it, take it. Take 40 to 50 grams if you're trying to put on some muscle mass, and have some carbohydrates too. You can have dextrose powder you can add. There's an actual equation. One of the things we do for clients is, customize their program. And that means like, okay, little Jimmy, you're trying to put on some muscles? Okay, so we're gonna find out exactly how much dextrose you need. And we put an equation together for how much dextrose in grams they need. They buy from Amazon, they put it in the shake, they grow some nice muscles.
Right.
But that's one of the ways a trainer can benefit you, is like you get down to this detailed level of knowledge to how much, okay, so you say carbohydrates, how much, right?
Right,
well,
exactly.
That's where the trainer comes in to tell you, exactly how much.
Right, exactly. So like I said, we want to make sure before the workout, we have those, carbs, those fat, or those carbs and those proteins. But another thing that people ask too, Matt, is like what about like intra workouts, like having something in between. Now that all really depends in terms of how hard you're going that day. In terms of like, let's say you're like, again, you're having that heavy leg day and you are like taxed. Like let's say you burn through the carbohydrates that you ate the meal before. So what I would recommend then is probably having, let's say, some like fruit, some sort of like orange or something like that, some like simple sugars to at least help replenish the glucose within the bloodstream, so that way we have more energy going into it. So that would be something that I would recommend throwing in there. If you don't need it, don't take it. Like it's not
probably
important.
like liquid IV or something like that.
That too,
that has a little bit of glucose in it. I mean, dextrose, and it has the sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium,
exactly.
all the electrolytes you need for muscle contraction and energy. So probably, I agree. If you're going that hard, then it would probably benefit you to do that. Now, one of these like $40 supplements that's like intra workout with amino acids, like that, there's no proof that amino acids.
And it's like, why waste the money if we know that there's like no scientific evidence saying that it is going to.
We've seen it with whey protein, we've seen it with creatine, but there isn't any solid proof that BCAAs or EAAs are able to stimulate muscle processes. I wish I would just take leucine every day and be jacked all the time. It doesn't work like that. You have to, everything is a matrix. You eat the foods, the real foods, and then together your body knows what to do with those. It puts them where they're supposed to go.
Exactly. And in terms of like, okay, so if I don't have, let's say, the intra, and then actually like when we're done with the workout, then when should I eat the protein, right? I would say at that point you have a little bit of time to play with, right? So again, like when you have your first pre-workout meal, and then going into the workout, and then after, it all depends in terms of the schedule, right? So again, you have that 4 to 5 hour window from when you eat that meal to then when you have that last post-workout. So like let's put it this way. So you have your pre-workout. Let's say like you do it an hour beforehand. Okay, you have your meal beforehand, the hour before. Then you go into your workout. Your workout's an hour. Okay, so that's overall 2 hours. Okay, take you some time to cool off, whatever. That now with that you have the extra like 2 to 3 hours to consume that to be able to help with the anabolic window. But either way, like, do you need to get protein right away? No, it's been been shown in many studies that it's a myth.
If you make it, like, people eat one meal a day, so
exactly,
and C5, they maintain muscle mass. So if you consume your target for your body weight, then you should be good.
Yeah, you should. Absolutely, 100%.
So one of the things I was going to that was a number 2 is how much cardio versus how much strength training to do. So say somebody is, they're aware of functional fitness per se. They don't want to be a bodybuilder. They want to be healthy. They want to be able to get their kids, and lift them up, and they want to be able to, go to the beach and feel good, take their shirt off, but also be able to swim and all that stuff, right? Functional body. Should they focus on just weights, just cardio? People say, like, I hate cardio. I don't like cardio. Just weights, just strength training, how many days a week? So, I don't know what your thoughts are, but I think, if you overdo the cardio, you can actually get a worse result than just not doing anything or just walking.
Absolutely.
You bang up your joints and you send a signal to your brain to just drop all the muscle mass. And, the cardio is going to make you starving. It increases what's called ghrelin, which is your hunger hormone. And it doesn't touch the leptin, which is your satiety hormone, which means that you're going to be super hungry and you'll be just as satiated as you were previously. So you're going to be crushing the food after those cardio sessions.
Exactly.
So something like, I prescribe, 1, maybe 2 20-minute runs or some high intensity cardio. You could do maybe 30 minutes, 2 times a week spread out, not on the days where you're strength training. They've shown that there's this interference effect where if you come into the gym and you train hard run 2 miles and you try and do it fast and you're getting after it, and then you go do a hard strength training session,
Yeah.
your body is not going to adapt to the strength training. It
Right.
will adapt to the cardio. It will take over and sort of dominate that brain pathway.
Exactly.
So what do you recommend for your people? Do you have them, like, if they're trying to lose weight, do you think they should bang out the cardio all day every day?
No, absolutely not. I feel like there should be like maybe some certain days maybe dedicated to cardio. Now it all really depends on people's schedules too. So now normally what I would recommend for some clients, I usually say at least minimum 3 days a week coming in. That's like a non-negotiable. You need to come in at least 3 days because we talk about and you obviously know this, but we talk about hypertrophy, things like that. For those people who want to, let's say, go out, take their shirt off, things like that. We want to at least hit our muscle groups at least twice a week.
Right.
All right. That's what in studies have been shown to, help with muscle growth, things like that. Now, for someone who is going to wanting to lose weight, it's still the same thing. Maybe 3 to 4 times a week. Maybe even 5 at a certain point. But maybe 3 days of those dedicated to like strength training.
Sure.
And then maybe 2 to 3 days dedicated to that cardio.
Yeah.
Now it depends on what type of cardio, like maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes on the Stairmaster. Sure. They could do more of like a high intensity.
So if they're 150 pounds and they're 55 and they've had hip replacement surgery, are you going to say go for a run?
No. Absolutely not.
No,
at that point they would need to focus more on the strength training.
Yeah.
Right. That's what they would need for functional purposes.
If you got 25-year-old Bill Wickerspoon and he's super shredded and he's looking to get on, he's got a Spartan race coming up, is that guy going for sprints or a run? Oh yeah. So it depends again on your situation.
Yeah. Everybody's goal is different in terms of like how you can incorporate fitting the workouts into your schedule while incorporating the runs. Figure out in terms of like how many days a week you can get to the gym.
Right.
Figure out your actual overall goal, and then incorporate that.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, like if let's say Dan is trying to go for like a Spartan race or something like that, there are going to be some sprints, there's going to be some intervals, there's going to be things to help him prepare for that, but he also needs to make sure that he can functionally, strength-wise, be able to do it.
Yeah.
Right? So then we'll focus on like the legs, focus on some upper body, and maybe probably put him on a 4-day-a-week program doing upper lower.
And the 3-3-30 is time tested.
Yeah.
A 3 speed, 3 incline, 30-minute walk. If you want to be a real badass, wear a weight vest.
Yeah.
I mean, that if you want to really kill yourself, move it up to an hour.
Right.
And then
Exactly. So
that's not cardio. That is cardio. And so that'll work just in and of itself. The Airdyne bike, kettlebells. There's all these things that can make it exciting and fun.
Yeah.
Or just not the elliptical for 30 minutes, or whatever.
I'm not a big fan of the elliptical, to be honest with you.
Yeah, people don't do it because it's boring, and I get it.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, not only that, I mean, I feel like, and I don't know if you agree, but I feel like it kind of leads to a little bit of knee problems because you're kind of like in the stationary.
Yeah, I mean, that's getting into the weeds, but I agree. Yeah, the elliptical sort of puts you in knee valgus as you're pushing out.
Exactly. So.
But with that said, I mean, I was looking at, I believe it was hockey goalies and catchers.
Yeah.
And they're all day knee valgus. If you look at, hockey goalies when they go to block a shot,
right, because
they drop into knee valgus, essentially, a knee valgus squat.
Yeah, because of the pads, right? So it's trying to make like a block barricade.
Totally, but their knees are moving that way.
Yeah.
So one could say, and that's the research recently in terms of research. This is bro science, just citing that. In terms of anecdotal research, I guess you could say. But lifting with a rounded back, that's one of the myths here. Is you shouldn't lift with a rounded back. And so while you shouldn't deadlift like a scared cat with 500 pounds as a 16-year-old with a rounded spine, yes, but lifting with a rounded back is usually only bad because we never lift a lot of weight with our rounded back.
Right.
We're taught keep your back straight, keep it in neutral position, lift a deadlift or whatever it is. But the Jefferson curl, so mobility is huge there. So for the general pop, 100%.
Yeah.
Try not to round your back when you're lifting things.
Hello, friends. If you made it this far, give yourself a round of applause for having to sit through us talking about certain random topics. You want me and Matt to talk more about stuff within the fitness industry? Subscribe below, hit that like button. Now, back to your regular scheduled program.
The most common fitness myths is that you should static stretch before you lift.
Oh, God, no.
Yeah, definitely not.
Absolutely not. Please
Don't do that.
don't ever do that. Okay, don't.
When you static stretch, what you're doing is you're sending a signal to your brain to relax and stay loose, to have whatever muscle you're stretching and
Right.
holding, relax, stay loose. So like you're doing yoga, for instance. But if you were to do yoga and hold a position and then go try and deadlift your max and then go back to yoga and then squat, it's not going to end well. You're sending a signal to relax, stay loose, and then be contractile and explosive and tight. And it's just your brain. Let's focus on one thing at a time here. So
right, exactly. And you actually you did some research in terms of like
there was
a study done
in Boston University.
Yeah.
Menlo Hensman was the one who reported on that. But essentially they took people. It was a large group, over 100 people, and they had some folks do lengthening. So where you're stretching but with a load, or dynamic stretching, and then strength training. And the other group just did stretching, static stretching, like yoga or some just static stretching at their house. But it was for an hour and a half every day. So each group performed whatever it was, the yoga or static stretching for an hour and a half, or the other group did lengthening, loaded stretches, and strength training with full range of motion, which is like a loaded stretch.
Right, exactly.
And so they measured their baseline hamstring length is what they went with specifically, but they measured like a sit and reach test, like you're in school and they're like, all right,
typical stuff that you did back in high school, right?
Everybody do your pull-ups, do your run, your pacer test or whatever, and then do your sit and reach test. I don't even know if they do that anymore, but and then they would measure it prior to the activity and then after the activity. And so what was interesting is the next day and after the study was completed, the static stretch group saw an improvement in their flexibility after the hour and a half.
Wow.
But then the next day, the next morning when they went to retest, they were back to their original baseline. So they hadn't actually had lasting improvement.
Exactly.
Right. The other group actually saw lasting improvement and were able to get 2-3 inches in flexibility by doing loaded stretches and then training their hamstrings and getting them stronger.
Right. Yeah. And listen, like at the end of the day, you got to take the muscle through the full range of motion.
Sure.
We're big believers of ROM over here.
Yeah.
I think in terms of overall functionality, like if you go full range of motion, first and foremost, let's say, for example, you're doing a squat, like it's going to make the most sense to do, a full range of motion squat compared to, let's say, doing a quarter squat. Unless if you're like an explosive athlete.
Well, I was just going to say, right, I think this podcast should be called It's About Your Situation in this episode, I guess, because it comes back to that again, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're a basketball player and you're looking to explode off the line and get that layup, get that dunk, then you want to load heavy quarter squats.
Exactly, yeah.
But say you're a regular person, say you're a 28-year-old guy, you work a 9 to 5, you just want to be able to be fit. Should you be able to squat down full range of motion? Of course.
For sure, 100%. Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
a natural human movement. You need to be able to perform that.
Right, exactly. And to your point, man, I train a lot of athletes. I train athletes from like high school, some collegiate and then some professional.
Yep.
Biggest thing I will tell athletes is, if they are playing basketball, then I would say, yes, do like quarter squats, things like that. But to your point, if your overall goal is, functionality purposes, then at that point, ROM makes the most sense.
I mean, look at Olympic weightlifters. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So probably the most money, time, effort would be someone who is an Olympic weightlifter. You're at the Olympics performing the snatch or the clean and jerk, right?
Right.
Do any of them do a clean and jerk to parallel?
No,
they do not.
Because that's going to be a lot of strain on their knees.
Yeah, it's just not physically efficient movement, right?
Exactly.
You need to garner that momentum, go all the way down, and use the elasticity of your knees, the triple extension on the way up,
right,
to be able to lift the most amount of weight you can. People will parallel squat and they'll be able to do a significant amount. Generally they can do more in the parallel squat, for instance, than they can do in a full range of motion squat.
Right, exactly.
But there's a reason that we want you to do full range of motion. When you go all the way down, you stretch the connective tissue in the joints.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that over time, you strengthen the joints.
Exactly.
And so if you, so Joe Smith and Jack Smith over here, both squatting for 5 years, right?
Right.
This guy is just going to parallel. This guy's going all the way down. This guy can probably lift more weight. There's probably more weight on the bar for this guy, but this guy's going to progress much more slowly.
Exactly.
But at the end of the 5 years, this guy's joints are strong and he has strong quads.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy just has strong quads and he's got some knee pain.
Yeah.
So, and you can't go back in time.
No,
you know,
absolutely not.
So, you know, just because you could lift more weight on the bar, like a funny thing is, like, I'm sure you've seen this with clients. It's
Mhm.
like they're doing a move in a certain way, and then you're like, do it this way, and they go, oh, it's much harder that way, and you're like, well,
Oh my God.
that's the way we need to do it then.
Absolutely.
You know, so no, so yeah, so the full range of motion is huge. I mean, you look at like guys like Sam Sulik, you know,
Big boy,
and,
yeah.
and so if we're not saying that if you want to get large muscles or you want to get in better shape or get stronger, you have to have every single rep be a full range of motion rep.
Mm-hmm.
But the bulk of your training should be
Full range of motion.
Dr. Mike from Lehman College and Renaissance Periodization is well-established, credible guy. You know, the whole system that he has is based on full range of motion.
Shout out Dr. Mike.
Oh yeah, definitely. Shout out Dr. Mike.
Probably won't see this, but you know, you never know.
But that's the interesting thing, and that's why we started the podcast, is because you have Dr. Mike, brilliant. Their whole group is super smart, and they know their stuff. Their physiques reflect it, and the science is behind it.
For sure.
And then you have Dr. Joel Seedman, who will tell you that only going to 90 degrees, only parallel squatting, never going full range of motion.
Yeah.
You have this Nadia Aguilar with functional patterns, who says that deep squatting is bad. You should not deep squat. He says cigarettes are better than yoga. You would be better off smoking cigarettes than doing yoga. So there's these charlatans that are making these statements that are rage baiting, I guess you call it nowadays, right? So
clickbait, yeah.
You put this clickbait out. I think it's rage bait because people see it and they're enraged by it. They're
I can, yeah.
And they have to comment on it.
Yeah, I tell you what, man. It's just when I see some of the stuff, and listen, man. Like, I'll be honest. Like back in the day, I always thought that, like, you know, 90's fine.
Sure.
Like when you're young and dumb.
In sports, that's what they teach you, right?
Exactly. And when you're in sports, that's what they teach. They teach you to go parallel. You know,
Right.
things like they don't teach you to go full range of
Because
motion.
they want you to have strong muscles. They don't care about your joints.
No, exactly. And you know that was just what we were taught. And I always thought growing up that was right. And then obviously getting more into the fitness industry, and you know having the passion to actually pursue this.
Sure.
I was like, oh, that's actually not what you're supposed to do. So you're like,
well,
okay.
depended on each situation, right?
Right,
Like,
each situation.
If you are powerlifting per se,
yeah.
And all you have to do is get below the hip crease, like so you have to go right below parallel.
Yep.
That's required by whatever federation, and then up. You might have another 4 inches you could go,
For sure.
but it's not necessary because you're trying to lift the most weight. And if you increase those extra 4 inches down, you're not going to be able to lift 100 less pounds.
And that's what I did with my one client, Paul. I mean, obviously, so I have trained, powerlifters before. I've trained some bodybuilders, some powerlifters. So with the powerlifters, right, again, to your point, I mean, that's probably what we would train because,
Sure.
again, that's all they need. All they need is to hit 90 degrees.
They're looking at moving the most weight. So
exactly.
how can we do that
without, having to suffice, like going full range of motion and then being able to get out of the hole.
Right.
Right. I mean, if you go ROM, then, hey, they might be impressed, especially if you do every load of weight. But, like, could you get more out of, doing, 90? For sure.
Right.
Absolutely. So that's be something that I would recommend for powerlifters. But again, like if you're like your average Joe working 9 to 5, like you said, then I would say ROM is going to be what's beneficial for you for longevity purposes and overall functional based movements.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Well, yeah. I think we pretty much crushed it all today, man. I think we put a good stop to a lot of the the myths out there.
Totally.
Obviously, there's going to be more myths that we're going to talk about, in future podcasts. But it's good to finally get this going. Start educating the people on this.
Totally.
Because again, there's a lot of misleading information. Joel Seaman, for example. Shout out, but not really. But yeah, so there's just a lot of misleading information that we want to just be able to help you all understand. And like I said, I think we did a lot of that today.
Yeah.
So
No, I agree, man. I agree. Yeah, I think that and the more you guys comment and or share to people, they can ask questions, and they might put, send us a DM or a comment, talk about this, talk about that, and you'll go, oh yeah, I want to hear about that too. So you never know. So tell us what you want us to research and look up. Tell us what you want to hear about.
Right.
What are some things that you've heard that you are like, is that true? We want to, because to us, we think that a lot of times, oh, everybody knows this stuff.
Oh, for sure.
It's like,
and you're like, oh, like this should be simple science.
Right.
Like, no. Some people don't really know, and that's why we want to educate them.
Yeah.
Because again, there's a lot of misleading information. There's a lot of great information out there. For example, Jeff Nipper, Dr. Mike,
Sure.
Great guys, and very, very knowledgeable people.
Yeah.
But again, like there's a lot of things that we're going to talk about, especially with future podcasts that are going to be trying to help you get to your goals and see where where we can take that. So,
right. Yep.
But yeah, man. So I think that pretty much wraps up what we have for today.
Totally. Yeah,
but
guys.
like I said, guys, thank you all for listening to us rant. We really appreciate it, and we would really appreciate it if you hit that thumbs up. What is that thing called?
I think it's a thumbs up.
I think it is a thumbs up button. Jeez Louise, huh?
It's a
Had
liking,
a little bit of
liking mechanism.
Had a little bit of a stroke. Hey,
yeah,
any hot nurses in there might want to help this boy out here. Anyway,
give him a 50-year-old Scandinavian woman.
But yeah, hit that like button down there. Comment down below in terms of like what topics you want to see next from us. But this has been the Muscle Minds podcast, and we will see you in the next one. Adios.
Again on the track.